There are some things going on, though. And Jason Anderson put out an article 2 days ago. And it's, like I said, he did it in the dead of the night. The only reason I saw it was because I was up with baby girl. And now it's starting to get some legs. And we have some Sam Amic sound that we will play a little bit later in the show where he discusses it. We know that when it comes to fans and media and players, fans are always going to side most of the time on the side of the players. I get that. But Brenden, we haven't really got to discuss since the article came out, just your take on where we're at with this. Is it overblown? And by the way, just walking back some of the Kings fans that we've seen on social media, on Reddit, worried about De'Aaron Fox and like the organization. I don't want to misspeak here, but I would like to let them know that I don't think it's that deep.
Yeah.
It ain't that deep. Right. We can't really go into the details too much, but from what we know, it ain't that deep.
Right. I don't think it's that deep. I think it's it seems to me that it's De'Aaron upset that after that New Orleans game where they got blown out by 50. And this all stems from the media side. And I think that I attempt to kind of try to speak for the fan base a little bit sometimes in those media sessions, is after they got blown out in Boston by who knows how much, Keon Ellis gets sent to the podium.
Yep.
And it's like, all right, that's not really fair. But I guess he was a backup point guard at the time. Like, it's not the worst thing.
It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad, but it's real bad when it happens again.
We've seen it before, though.
Yes, for sure.
Which is also
it is bad for sure, but it's, kind of reaches another point when it happens again, when you get blown out at home against New Orleans.
When you're about to go on a long road trip as well.
And you're down like 40-50, getting 50. Totally beat by this team. Yeah,
50.
That you'd already lost to 3 times. And Keon Ellis didn't play in this game until they were down 40, I think, at this point in the fourth quarter. And he only plays, I got to come up with a better term, but garbage time minutes, and then goes to the podium. And so Mike Brown kind of got asked about, well, I'll just start by saying that's not fair to Keon. And absolutely. I think there's about 7 dudes on that team that could have talked. There's the typical starting 5, and there's Trey Lyles and Malik Monk. Yeah. Those guys play every single night that they're available, really. And I think it's not just a De'Aaron thing. It could have been any of those other guys. But De'Aaron got some crap for it after the fact for not showing up. And his frustration is that he didn't even get asked to do media that day. And so from his perspective, I'd imagine it's like why is everybody mad at me? I didn't even get asked to do this.
Yeah.
And now everybody's on me about it. And I think that it's just kind of, I guess, snowballed from there. And, not going to speak to like where he's at mentally or anything right now, but that seemed to sort of be the peak of it, or what kind of started this not really preferring to speak to media. And that's where we're currently at, really. And we get one more practice today that I'm going to head to at noon, and we'll see. And then they're going to be gone on the longest road trip of the season.
So my question to that, and I don't think that there is an answer, but I think what you're saying is, I think, really, really great stuff. But do we have an answer to why De'Aaron chose to sit out those 16 press conferences or whatever, 16 days that it was?
Not really. My understanding is just that there was a frustration that stemmed from, again, that New Orleans game, where if he did not get asked, which is my understanding, that is unfair to him, that like, why is everybody on me? I didn't even get asked to do this. Yeah. And I think after even the Boston game, or it was some game previously in the year, I could be remembering specifically which one, he got asked like why he didn't do media. And he's like, well, I never turned it down. I just didn't get asked, So I think there's kind of a frustration there, but that's really the extent of kind of what I got on that. And maybe that's building up. Like maybe there's behind the scenes stuff going on with him in his personal life. I'm not saying that there is, and I know about it. I'm not saying it. I genuinely have no clue, but like, I feel like it's important to acknowledge each person is human. And I feel like it's easy for people to kind of forget that, and you never know what somebody's going through, but this is a contractual obligation. So I get why this has become a big thing. You're losing 4 in a row, which I think got blown out of proportion a little bit, but right. I get it from a fan base perspective. And at that point, the fan base wants to hear from their franchise cornerstone. So I get the frustration from the fan base's side. But that's my understanding. I couldn't really tell you why it's extended as long as it has, but that's my understanding of like when it started.
Because it's just a little bit confusing that if you and I understand. I completely understand why De'Aaron would be upset for people being upset at something that he in that moment had no say over. But if you're upset about feeling as if something is being miscommunicated or you're being misunderstood, in my opinion, the best way of getting a more clear understanding is by coming out and saying it yourself. And so I think that's where I think De'Aaron loses a little bit of his legs to stand on there when it's okay. Yes, I'm upset about whatever the specific situation is. Well, if you're upset, like, I mean, he definitely let us know with that interview that he had breaking the 16-day streak, that pregame press conference showed all the frustration that he's feeling, but say something about it. I mean, to me, again, if you're really frustrated, no one likes anybody being passive aggressive. And it seems to me that's the approach that he's taken. And I understand why he would be upset, but I don't think that he's gone about it the right way.
Yeah, I definitely get that. There was like 5 years where the team sucked and he was talking to the Kings all the time.
Every time.
And he'd be really annoyed after losses. I always use him as honestly like a comparison of like one of my realizations of how normal these dudes are. Like there's days he clearly does not want to speak with us. Right. And I think that's totally fine and normal human behavior. There's days I don't want to do certain things in my job. Sorry, Joe. You guys are great.
But isn't that why you get an allotted, right? Well, let me ask this. What I've heard, I don't know if it's necessarily completely true or not, is that he was up against it as far as the NBA was concerned. So him talking to the media in that pregame, was it actually De'Aaron saying, I'm breaking this, or was it saying, I don't want to get fined?
Yes.
I think it was probably more of the latter, but that's just kind of guessing. And I don't really know because I'm not trying to like defend him. I'm just kind of trying to present the other side of like, you know, if he wants to eat a fine and not talk, he technically could do that.
Right.
And like, I think that some people can kind of think that, and again, this is just me trying to think of presenting the other side, not saying that I believe this or anything. Is that like, I think some people could be like, well, why do I need to justify myself to you guys?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I don't know, but like, I mean, it's kind of up to him. And if he wants to eat the fine, if it got to that point, and I'd imagine that talking pregame kind of reset that timer.
Yes.
Big Marshawn Lynch. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Yes, very much so.
Which is hilarious to me. But yeah, I mean, you know, if it doesn't help that it's also coming at a time where he's not playing well, and people want to hear about that.
Team's not playing well.
And and this is his contractual obligation. Like, I think that for the sake of the fan base, he should be out there. He should be talking. This is part of your contract. And I'd imagine that eventually this will all blow over, but I think there's just a level of frustration, and he could go out there and give us super short backhanded comments because he's done that before, and that's fine.
That is always my thing. All right, we got to get to a break. When we get back, we do have sound from Sam Amic. We're going to keep this conversation going. And again, the beef is not as deep as you think. To all the Kings fans, the Beam regime, everybody out there listening, at least as far as we know. Right, at least as far as we know, the beef with De'Aaron and this whole situation, I just saw some crazy stuff floating around. Some account said De'Aaron has unfollowed the Sacramento Kings on Instagram, and someone said, "Homie, he was never following the Kings, or that was 4 years ago." So we're trying to just give everybody clarity, as much clarity as we can. Keep listening. We will be right back. Styles and Watkins joined by Brenden Nunes, our Sactown Sports Insider. We'll be right back.
Join us for Championship Sunday as the Ravens host the Chiefs at noon and the Lions battle the 49ers at 3:30. The NFC and AFC Championship heard right here on your home for the NFL playoffs and Super Bowl 58, Sactown Sports.
Carmichael Dave here for Jiffy Lube, your proud sponsor of the Drive of the Game. Now listen to every Kings game for Gary Gerald's Drive of the Game call, then listen to Jason and myself the next morning for a chance to win a $100 Jiffy Lube certificate courtesy of all the Jiffy Lube locations in the greater Sacramento area. Get your vehicle ready for the holiday driving season at Jiffy Lube today. Oil changes, wiper blades, tire rotations, and more. For more information, go to jiffylube.com.
At Ashton & Price, we get injury victims to yes. Experience, yes. Ashton & Price has been around for over 25 years. No more insurance companies? Yes. Our clients focus on getting better, and we handle all the rest. Results? Yes. We've collected over $100 million for injury victims. No fee until we win? Yes. Our clients pay nothing until we win. Ashton & Price, the best at getting to yes. Remember, for the best advice, don't think twice. Call Ashton & Price.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency on earth, and if you owe back taxes, the news isn't good. The IRS is raising the interest rate it charges on unpaid taxes, and further rate hikes are expected. Most people don't know it, but the IRS adds interest charges to your tax debts daily. So if you owe the IRS today, you'll owe even more tomorrow. And it doesn't stop until you get right with the IRS. The good news is getting right can start with one phone call to Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax relief firm. Optima's tax professionals specialize in the Fresh Start Initiative, a powerful IRS program that can save you thousands if you qualify. In fact, the experts at Optima have resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients. Call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
When it's chilly cold at night, don't just add another blanket. Add a new furnace system instead. Now for as low as $5,999 with 0% interest and no payments for 18 months. Bonnie.com. Some restrictions apply. License 696-355.
Time to get your tickets for the Sacramento Sports Hall of Fame celebration. February 4th at Thunder Valley. Inductees include Matt Barnes. Go to Ticketmaster.com.
KHTKAM HD1 Sacramento, KYMX HD2 Sacramento. From the Power Business Technology Toshiba Studios.
This is Sactown Sports. Live and local. Live and local.
This is Sactown Sports.
Brenden Nunes joins us.
What's up?
Mm-hmm. Brenden, you got up early today? What's your coffee drink? What is that?
This is a
Let me
flat
guess.
white.
Oh, that's not what I was.
Yeah.
What? Excuse me?
A flat white, apparently. Yeah. I like to think of myself as more of a
Cappuccino,
curved
like
white, but this is a flat white, you know?
Goodness.
So here we go. So so here's my thing. And look, if you were just now tuning in because we're shouting it out on Twitter, we got some deep info here, but I'm just like, I'm trying to figure this thing out. Do you like ranch?
This feels so.
Wait, how do we go from coffee to ranch?
Because you
Is
got
the next
the
question mayo.
Because you got the mayo on the hot dog. You're drinking a flat white, which I've never heard of.
Yeah,
Are there egg
I
whites
got put
in there?
onto this
What
by
is that?
somebody else. I'm
I'm just saying. All right. Like, I don't food shame.
It's
Well, you
flat,
clearly
like
do.
something that's something to deal with the foam, right?
Sure.
Must be,
Honestly, I
right?
have no clue. I got put onto this drink like a week ago.
All right.
Okay. All right. Shout out flat white. I don't know. All right. Let's hear from Sam Amic
No
as
comment.
we get back into as we get back into the Kings talk. And, a lot of this stuff is starting to get revealed as we go. And that's why we're here. We know that there are certain things. And obviously, you are listening to the flagship. And there are certain things that honestly, it's not even that we're not at liberty to say. It's that, have you ever played the game Telephone? I don't know. You guys are a bit younger than me. You guys played Telephone,
absolutely.
right? The ending message is always completely different.
Way different.
And we don't want to be associated with Telephone. So if it's not something that Brenden, Chris, or myself have heard
Or experienced.
from being in there and understanding what's going on, we're not going to give you bad information because that's not good for you. And it definitely is not good for us. Let's hear from Sam Amic and what he had to say on the Athletic Pod.
And you see stuff, it's been a weird to and you never know. I don't want to connect dots that don't exist, but the tension and the energy is strange right now. You might have seen in the news this morning, and it was honestly a little slow to come to light. Like De'Aaron Fox has has not spoken to the media he went 16 days without talking to the media.
What?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. And it
Why?
was that's the part that, I mean, I do have a decent amount of clarity on it. I'm probably not going to share everything publicly, but it's like it's a weird one where he got criticized after they lost to New Orleans. And at one point they were down 50 in a home game a couple weeks back.
Yes, remember that. Yep.
And it got highlighted, and Mike Brown was asked essentially why in these one-sided blowout losses is your leadership council, which he's talked before about who that is. It's, I think, Fox and Sabonis. I forget who all is in it, but it's a small group of guys. So the question was basically, why don't these guys talk after blowout losses? They had Keon Ellis up at the podium. To me, it's a fair question, but I think in the wake of that, De'Aaron was upset with the way that he took some criticism there. It was reported in the Sacramento Bee today that night that he had actually not been asked to talk. He had a bad game and they were trying to give him a night off, I believe. And it's a bad set of circumstances to where he just went dark. And so that's its own thing. But then you have, in a little speculation here, but like Harrison Barnes is not talking much. And it feels very much like, he's a grown man who's aware that he's on the block and doesn't feel like
he's been through this before. Yeah.
I'm not this ends, right?
Right.
Yep.
So it's like, there's a lot of that. It's the anti-DeJounte Murray vibe, if you will. These guys are not taking it as well, I don't think. And everybody's playing the waiting game. So I don't know what they'll do, lately. And some of this is out there. This is in your neck of the woods, DA, some Kyle Kuzma chatter.
Yep.
That I think could be real. I think a Jeremy Grant kind of aspiration that Portland probably is not going to cooperate with. But they're aggressive, and I think they know they got to do something.
Whew.
Sam Amic, right? The Harrison Barnes thing. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I've obviously been doing it this season. I don't know that I have been in a post game with Harrison Barnes. Now, I haven't been at every game.
Yeah.
But I can't recall one.
Well, it's funny. My first season was like the year that Buddy Hield was on his way out. Yeah. And I think I talked to him like twice, like the whole year.
Right. So some of this I think that's why Harrison Barnes is getting a pass here and why we're focusing more on De'Aaron Fox. But your initial thoughts to kind of what Sam broke down. And a lot of people are asking for more clarity. Some fans don't care. Some fans want to know. Some fans just want to know that, like we keep saying, it's not a actual beef with stuff on the court. It ain't a Bucks situation or anything like that. As far as we know, this is more of the things that you don't really like doing at work.
Right.
And just a matter of who, the blame, I guess for lack of a better term, the blame game and whose responsibility is it in these situations where nobody wants to do anything. My initial thought when I'm De'Aaron is after a 50-point loss, right? The second time around, I understand where he's coming from, but are you telling me as he's leaving the building, he wasn't just a little bit relieved that he wasn't asked to speak, right? Are you telling me now if he didn't know that there was, because after the first time with Keon, a lot of people in the media brought it up, right? And so maybe he wasn't aware of that or whatever, but after the second time, you sure you just weren't a little relieved, right? I mean, give us something here. Give us something.
No, yeah, I think it's definitely, again, where De'Aaron kind of doesn't have a lot of legs to stand on, because I do think at some point you got to know, like, this is a little strange that I haven't even been asked. And I understand why he might feel like, hey, it's not my obligation to stand up and Spartacus this thing and say, I will speak for this team.
Hey, no, hold on, because now it's like a movie, right? So they're in the locker room, heads down. Hey, Keon, do you want to come speak? Yeah. Keon starts to stand up. De'Aaron comes next to him, hold his shoulder.
Sit down, young pup.
Keon, you go home, man. I got this. And the music comes in.
And then HB puts a shoulder on Fox and says, no, Fox, I got this. Then Sabonis puts his shoulder on it. Just a long train of that.
Go ahead,
That's
Brenden.
what should have happened.
Your
thoughts.
Yeah. It sounds like a great movie. It sounds like a, what is it? Game of Zones.
Yes.
It's very much
man.
like one of those episodes. I'll say I don't think that, I don't know, but like everyone's post-game locker room team is going to be different. And We don't know how many guys were aware that Keon was getting asked to go up. And so I get that initial frustration. And I don't think it's necessarily on him to be like, okay, I'm going to go talk today. You know, like he probably doesn't want to do it. You know, he probably does not want to. And I don't think, I think that that's reasonable, but there is if you're asked, that there is kind of a contractual obligation. So I get frustrated with not being asked and then getting a bunch of crap for that. And, you know, it extending on as long as it has, obviously, is its own different story. But, you know, if he doesn't get asked and he's not really aware, his job is to go perform on the court and, yes, to talk to media when he's asked. But if he's not asked, then, you know, I don't think it's on him to go out of his way to do it. Now, I'll say, like, Domantas Sabonis does talk pretty much every single game.
Yeah.
If he doesn't talk at the podium,
He's
we're
a
getting
real
him
one.
in his locker.
He's a real one.
And, you know, maybe his post-game routine is just a little different. Like, he's got a long trek to get back home.
Sure
and
does.
I don't know what De'Aaron's trek is like, but I'd imagine it's not the same extent as Sabonis is. And, you know, each person's post-game stuff is going to be a little different. Domas is doing a bunch of stuff, and then he'll talk to us at the very end of it. And De'Aaron seems to get out of there pretty quickly from what we can tell. So, you know, that plays a factor, I guess, a little bit in some of this post-game stuff. And I do think he could take it on him to talk a little bit more, but I also understand a sense of frustration of it's not my responsibility to figure out when I should and should not be talking.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if I don't get
Quite literally
asked,
somebody else's
then
job.
like,
Right.
if you're somebody that's like, I'd rather not, and I don't get asked, then I probably would be happy about that.
No, I don't doubt it. And there is a part of this that maybe De'Aaron didn't know it was Keon. Maybe he
Right.
thought it was, we don't know.
He probably didn't know.
Right. We're not in the locker rooms. I know you're in the locker rooms after that happens, right? But we don't know if it's, okay, well, I know I'm one of the leaders, but if it's Domas and HB, they got it. Domas and
Right.
Herder, they got it, right? Whatever the case is. Maybe he didn't know it was Keon, but it's still tough for me because once you get, and I don't know how active he is on social media or whatever it is, you maybe not the first time, but the second time, which is when this whole thing started. Like I said, we love blame pie on this show. I think everybody gets a little bit of
For sure.
blame here. And ultimately, guys, this is what it comes down to. This is what happens when you trick off games. And this never happens if you're not down 50.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't happen because De'Aaron doesn't really mind talking. Not that he likes it after they win either, but he doesn't really. Is it a surprise that this boycott correlated with them playing like Basuda? Is it a surprise?
Can
I don't think so.
I want to add something else though to this whole media conversation that no one has brought up. I'm even surprised from the media side. Another issue with the fact that we got Keon Ellis on that night was we only got Keon Ellis on that night. Typically, it is. I think it's, correct me if I'm
Two
wrong.
players and
It is
coach.
NBA protocol to get 2 players and a coach. So not only was the one player we got sent not somebody who was satisfactory or somebody who frankly impacted the game on that night, or we would, want quotes from, no disrespect, Keon Ellis, but he was the only person. So not only were they in violation of just sending out 2 guys, you then violated a personal code or an unspoken code of, at least if you're only going to give us one guy, give us a Sabonis, give us a Fox, give us somebody that we can at least say, they only sent us one person, but it's fine. We can write tonight's story with Sabonis's quotes. We couldn't do anything with just getting Keon Ellis's quote. And then, Mike Brown pretty much said, you're going to have to ask somebody else. This ain't on me. Brenden, what I want to ask you, and maybe this is a lob of a question, but I think it's the other side of where I think a lot of fans are coming from. Brenden, why do we need to care about this? Why should I care that De'Aaron Fox isn't talking to media? Why do I care that after a 30-point loss, Keon Ellis is the one stepping up? I'm a fan. I care about the games. I don't even turn on NBC Sports. I don't look at the Kings YouTube to see their post-game press conferences. I don't care. I only care about the games. Why should I care about this?
Yeah, and I'd say that I think that fans were worried amid a 4-game losing streak, and that one of the most calming voices you could hear from, even if he's frustrated, would be De'Aaron Fox. Like, that's one of the guys that you want to hear from. And you're probably even growing more concerned as a fan when you're not hearing from him, is what I'd imagine. If somebody does not care about hearing from De'Aaron, then, that's its own thing. But in my mind, it's a, like, it's become a thing because he is the face of the franchise. And I would imagine, and definitely people correct me out there if I'm wrong, that most of the fan base wants to hear from him, especially when he's in a little bit of a rut and when the team is struggling a little bit. And again, it's a 4-game losing streak. It's not that bad, right? But there was some cause for concern with the way that those games were blown at the end of games. Yeah, for sure. The couple of definitely blown leads against higher caliber teams on your East Coast road trip. For sure, I get it. So I think it honestly has been a tricky situation for me, and kind of the first time I've dealt with something like this since being in media. And initially I kind of had the same thing of like, well, if a guy just doesn't want to talk for a little while, like to each his own, but it is a contractual obligation. And I think the reason that it is because the fan base wants to hear from you.
Yes. That's the big thing to me.
Right. And honestly, I think fan bases are really stuck, right? Or they're conflicted because on one end, we know that De'Aaron has a baby and we know that he is a real person and he shouldn't be forced to do these things, right? And that's where a lot of fan bases will kind of bang on the media. But at the same time, maybe it's just the line. Maybe to whatever fan, it's a different line to where it's,
right.
Oh, well, 4 losses, that's whatever. Like, you don't need to be on him for this because I'm seeing right here from David Myers, why do we keep talking about media obligations? I'm more concerned with his play on court. Injury, David, there's no injury. They're not reporting an injury. So the only thing we can also think of is this correlation.
Well, and I'd say we'd have if he was able to come out and say there's no injury, that would help a lot too.
We don't know.
Yeah.
We had Mike Brown in the post-game presser say he talked about ups and downs, okay? And he said De'Aaron is still young. We have said it on this show time and time again. I'm in the post game. Brendan's in the post game. We're posting articles. Chris does the post game. We're in the pregame. They're not saying anything as far as De'Aaron even being slightly banged up.
As a matter of fact, Sabonis yesterday, they asked him, or the other day, asked him like, hey, De'Aaron's slumping a little bit. And he looked around and said, I don't think he's slumping at all.
Yeah.
And like, that would have been a perfect opportunity to, what almost sparked all of this was Malik saying, oh, bumps and bruises. Remember?
Yeah.
De'Aaron Fox, bumps and bruises. We got to pick him up. None of that.
None of that.
So it doesn't seem like it's an injury at all. I will also give to kind of wrap a bow on it all and answer my own question in a bit. It's also important because it's a bit of, hey, it starts with we don't get De'Aaron at the podium, but it's also we don't get anybody on our show, and Sam Amic won't get anyone to do a hit piece, to do a feature piece on.
Yeah.
Like, it's a slippery slope of, okay, yeah, you don't get them here, but it's also just the lack of access that fans are going to get is going to be less and less and less the more and more that we try and normalize this. I mean, if you enjoy reading long features on Keegan Murray, Anthony Slater just had one in The Athletic. All that stuff happens because we are given the availability to speak to these guys. And if they're going to continue to hide or to not be asked to do media, fans aren't going to get the coverage that they want.
We just can't, like, the thing for me, and we got to get to it, Simone's giving me the Damian Lillard and or the Tyrese Halliburton. The bottom line is, if you want to be one of those franchise guys, and I hate to do it because he's Chris's favorite player, obviously I'm joking around, but Steph Curry stands on business. Compare the 2 seasons. Compare the 2 seasons.
Right.
You have one rough spurt and you go dark, and Steph Curry is out there as
having
the team is a complete mess.
Yeah.
And he's out there in blowouts. He's out there. Klay Thompson is out there darn near in tears. And you can't handle softball questions like it's the NCAA World Series. Give me a break. We got to get to a break. When we get back, finishing the conversation, one more segment, and we'll get into some trade discussion. Styles and Watkins, Sactown Sports.
What's the latest with the San Francisco 49ers? Carmichael, Dave, and Jason Ross keep you up to date on all things red and gold during the Niners at 9 every weekday at 9 a.m. on Sactown Sports at SactownSports.com.
At Elk Grove Honda, not only do we have a great selection of pre-owned certified cars at very fair prices, but every one of our pre-owned automobiles are treated with kid gloves with a 182-point inspection that covers everything from unibody to tires to brakes and engine filters. Then our certified cars receive a mobile oil change and fresh fill-up with full synthetic mobile oil. We know you have lots of choices of where to purchase your next car. Come to Elk Grove Honda, home of the 182-point inspection and mobile oil change. We're in the Elk Grove Auto Mall, Highway 99 at Elk Grove Boulevard.
It's time to buck up, Sacramento. The professional bull riders are back. PBR Sacramento Wrangler Long Live Cowboys Classic will take over downtown's Golden One Center this February 2nd through 4th. 3 huge nights of edge-of-your-seat bucking, featuring some of the biggest bulls and toughest cowboys on the planet. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster. Get your tickets for a weekend of non-stop bucking action this February 2nd through 4th.
Live and local, it's Styles and Watkins. Watch the show on youtube.com/Sactown Sports 1140.
Or listen on the Sactown Sports app.
Justice Goto on the Sac Chat. Stop it, Styles. You're going to have to be more specific.
I was going to say.
Because we ain't stopping. We go until 2 p.m. Brenden Nunes, though, has one more segment with us. Been great, Brenden. Thank you for all of your insights. Are we good? Are we good on it? Are we good on it?
Yeah,
okay.
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
Sorry, I know.
Let's keep it going.
I'm trying to move on from this topic too, but I'll say that when it comes to him speaking with the media, is that yes, they get paid a lot to be really freaking good at basketball.
Yes.
Yeah.
But a big reason that the NBA has the finances that they do is because of these big fan bases. And so I think that's where sort of the obligation, quote unquote, comes in, is that technically these are kind of the reason that you're able to make the money that you are.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not that you owe them an explanation. I mean, to an extent, it kind of is, actually. And that's just kind of the one thing I wanted to add, is that part of this is because the fans are really the ones who make this happen. The NBA does not exist without its fan base.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's more so who he needs to speak to. And I think that's where media is coming from a lot as well, is that it comes off as like, we feel obligated that he has to speak with us. And really, we're the middleman is really all it comes down to. So we can definitely move on, but just wanted to get that one out there.
Yeah.
And again, though, I mean, to wrap a bow on it, I mean, it's the point of, like you guys said, I mean, people are wondering, is De'Aaron Fox hurt? Well, we haven't even spoken to De'Aaron Fox, so we can't, as Brendan's point, as the middleman, we can't tell you because we don't know.
Right.
And that's why it's so important.
I don't care about media availability. Is he hurt? Okay, well, his coach said he wasn't, but he hasn't said anything.
Right.
That's the end of the story. That's all. That's all we know.
Yeah.
That's all we know. I mean, I don't know if it's hurt. Like you said, Brenden, these people are humans. A lot can go on. You know, I always think about, to be completely honest, I always think about these different jobs and our job is kind of like that, but you can figure it out. But these different jobs to where you might be having a bad day, but it doesn't matter, right? The person that I always think when I was on my honeymoon, when that person that like leads all the games, right? And they're like getting people pumped up. Yeah. It's like, what if that person's just having a terrible day?
Right.
They figure it out.
I mean, I'm sure they are.
And that person is not getting paid NBA money.
Sure isn't.
Okay. So to me, like, that's just why I don't have a lot of, I don't have a lot of leeway for this type of thing. It's very simple. Most of the time you give athlete speak anyway. Yeah. Right. And to be completely honest, it's now become a bigger deal because of the quote unquote boycott. If you had just said, man, I didn't even know people were upset about the Keon thing. All right, let's just keep it pushing, right? Wherever De'Aaron was trying to
steer this,
or wherever De'Aaron was trying to make it known he wasn't happy, all he did was make this a bigger deal. He could have just showed up next game and just said, all right, whatever. Hopefully we stop getting blown out by 50. And if we do, I know that that's what they want. I'm just going to go cry on my millions. That's just how I feel. And maybe it's too old school, but that's how I feel. Like I said, I'm talking about people in so many different jobs, and I hate to be that guy, but come on now. Come on.
Yeah. No.
What are we talking about?
Yeah. And to your point, Steph talks every game. And I think there's other guys around the league that are more closer to De'Aaron's side than Steph's side, for sure, that maybe are difficult to access. And I don't think like De'Aaron's alone in this necessarily. No. Obviously, to this extent would be different. But I guess the one thing I'll add is, you know, Steph's getting asked to.
Sure. Right.
There you go.
Raymond Ritter. Right. Best guy. And I think it's tough too, because I mean, you know, whatever. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's move on. We've talked about this enough. And I get it.
I think that, to work this as a transition is that I don't think that this sort of stuff is affecting on court play, and not necessarily at all. There could be some nights like when you're doing post game, right? Or you're doing pregame and you're addressing this before the game. Wouldn't surprise me if that's in your head a little bit, like just going through warm-ups and stuff. I'd imagine that was before his warm-ups that took place. But I'd imagine once you get out there that like this is all fine. And I don't think that this is like a reason to be worried about the Sacramento Kings.
No,
you know what I mean?
think there could be multiple things. There's the media part of it. There is something that we don't know that we're not going to speculate on, possibly.
Right.
I don't know. And then there's just his play on court.
Right.
You put all that into a pot and you have what's going on right now. And really, De'Aaron, Chris was looking at the numbers, and I know some of it may have happened. We're going to call it get your work in time instead of garbage time.
Okay.
Some of De'Aaron,
I like that.
He's maybe saved some of his numbers during get your work in time, right, Chris? But they're not as bad as, I guess, what we think. He just started out on such an elite level, and that's what Coach Mike Brown said during the postgame. He came out on a heater. So any type of drop-off, right, is going to look tougher than it really is. And we know the clutch time stats have been bad, but besides that, he's been rolling real quick before we get into some trade stuff. And at this point, we're just flying along here.
Ooh.
But All-Star, are you worried about De'Aaron Fox making the All-Star team?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think his odds are very good. I think that there's
just escalated so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did. I mean, there's also a lot of, I don't know about not very good. It's probably like a coin flip nearly, like I don't have it all in front of me at the top of my mind, but like the other day I kind of went through and tried to lay out the guards and then lay out the forwards, and it's just less congested really when it comes to the forwards. And that's not to take anything away from De'Aaron. I think that he's been great. And I think Mike Brown's comments on like kind of why he's been struggling make a lot of sense to me as a potential reason. Like this is part of the growing process. Is this guy's 26. Last year it was, he's great in the clutch, but maybe these other first 2-3 quarters, he's not really doing it. Beginning of this year, we see him do it for pretty much the whole games. And now the next step in his development, again, a 26-year-old guy in his 7th year, is learning to do that consistently for 60 games. And then eventually you get to 70 or kind of that slow progression. So I think this is kind of part of the process of a guy learning and growing into a potential superstar. But for the All-Star question, I think his odds are pretty tough because the West is just super stacked. I think that there's definitely a chance that he still makes it, but I would say Domas is pretty close to, not a lock, but I feel pretty confident about Domas making it, and I have questions about De'Aaron.
What a switch.
Yeah.
Because we were complaining about the other way around, but, De'Aaron gets on a heater here, and you never know. All right, we're already up against it, Brenden. This has been great stuff. So we only have one trade question for you. Atlanta Hawks asking price for DeJounte Murray, first round pick, 2 first-round pick, and a starting level player. So basically Harrison Barnes and 2 first-round picks. You in or out?
Yeah, or if it's Kevin Huerter, I think I'm in. I think DeJounte Murray is really, really good, man.
Gotta do it.
We just saw him cook in Golden One Center. I think the defense is there, even if it's fallen off a little bit this year. He could shoot fairly well.
Why is he going to play defense in Atlanta? Why am I going to waste my time doing that? Get him to Sacramento now. Brenden Nunes, Sactown Sports Kings Insider. Great stuff. If you missed the beginning of this segment, he was here for an hour, and you want to catch it, you can rewind on YouTube. We'll cut it up. We'll also have a separate segment on YouTube, and go to SactownSports.com to catch the segment if you want to hear about De'Aaron Fox and the media beef. Styles and Watkins, Sactown Sports.
The 49ers earned the NFC's top seed.
On the first play of the game, CMC Dynamite!
Join all of our shows. The Carmichael Dave Show with Jason Ross, Styles, and Watkins. And the Drive Guys as they follow their quest for a 6th Super Bowl title.
Pressured right away by Young and sacked by Eric Armstead.
Sacktown Sports is your home for San Francisco 49ers football.
San Francisco!
Big savings are back at Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop.
Looking to own or lease? We have options for everyone. Plus, lower interest rates at Folsom Lake Honda make for lower payments. It's no wonder Folsom Lake Honda is your one-stop Honda shop.
Get an instant cash offer for your trade at FolsomLakeHonda.com. We'll buy your car whether you buy from us or not.
Visit us today at